Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Picture the late 1950s. The world is shivering in the grip of the Cold War, but the physical barriers are starting to dissolve under the roar of jet engines. The sky is being claimed by massive silver birds like the Boeing 707, machines that are bridging the vast gaps between New York and Paris in a single bourbon-soaked afternoon. But beneath the glamour of the first-class cabin and the crisp uniforms of the flight crew, a new kind of friction was mounting. The customs hall, once a sleepy desk with a bored clerk, was evolving into a sophisticated gauntlet of standardized documentation and early electronic record keeping. For the CIA, this was a disaster in the making. The old guard methods of slipping across a porous border in the dead of night were becoming obsolete in a world where every arrival was logged, stamped, and cross-referenced. The agency faced a terrifying realization. The modern spy could no longer be a man with a suitcase full of disguises. He had to be a man who officially didn't exist in the eyes of the machine. They needed to move high-stakes players through the front door. Under the fluorescent hum of London Heathrow are the bustling corridors of Orly, without leaving a single incriminating ink smudge in a local ledger. This was the era of the deep cover commuter, a time when the battlefield moved from the shadows of a Berlin alleyway to the brightly lit, sterile queues of international immigration. The pressure to innovate was immense, as hostile services like the KGB began implementing their own primitive but effective databases to track Western movements. To survive the jet age, the CIA had to reinvent the very concept of the traveler. They didn't just need fake names, they needed legends that were deep enough to satisfy a skeptical guard, but hollow enough to be discarded in a restroom stall. They had to build a system that was faster than the emerging computer networks, a protocol that could generate a living, breathing human history out of thin air and then delete it just as quickly. This was the birth of phantom logistics, an invisible infrastructure designed to ensure that the most important passenger on the plane was the one the flight manifest would never remember. This was the laboratory of the Paper-Wraith, where identity became a disposable tool and the world's commercial air routes became the ultimate clandestine highway. The designation QRJACK carries the specific weight of agency cryptograph. In the CIA's cryptonym system, the QR diagraph was the functional prefix used for the Office of Secretary, specifically regarding identity protection and alias management. The Jack suffix was a sterile descriptor chosen to represent the everyman, a common, unremarkable placeholder name. The name reflects the operational goal to jack or insert a fabricated persona into the real-world flow of humanity. Unlike other projects that use deep cover personas for years-long assignments, QRJACK was about the empty identity, a temporary disposable shell used solely for the act of transit. Once the border was crossed, the identity was jacked out of the system and allowed to dissolve, leaving investigators chasing a person who had never truly lived. We are dissecting the anatomy of a non-person. Here is the inventory of the QRJACK travel protocol. QRJACK established backstop accounts in major international banks to provide a financial history for fabricated identities. The project utilized the dead letterbox system to receive physical mail for addresses that existed only on paper. Records show the CIA used QRJACK to create prop companies, shell corporations that appeared to employ the empty identities. The agency coordinated with the Department of State to issue genuine passports under alias names. Documentation confirms that QRJACK identities were meticulously aged with pocket litter like old dry cleaning receipts and theater stubs. QRJACK operatives used double entry travel, where an officer would enter a country as one person and exit as another. The project developed thin film overlays for passport photos that could be swapped under specific lighting conditions. The CIA maintained a warehouse of period-correct luggage and clothing from every major global region. Records verify that QRJACK protocols included cultural fluency training to ensure the traveler didn't stand out in local airports. Internal audits reveal the CIA used QRJACK to move high-ranking Soviet defectors into the United States. The project utilized third country transit to break the surveillance chain between the origin and destination. Documentation shows the agency used QRJACK to bypass the watch list of neutral nations. Records confirm that QRJACK identities were used to lease safe apartments near major international transit hubs. The project utilized non-standard issue stamps and inks that mirrored the specific wear and tear of real customs offices. The CIA created shadow records and airline manifest through cooperation with friendly commercial carriers. Records show the project funded the creation of digital ghost data as early as the first mainframe computers were used for travel. The agency implemented timed self-destruct protocols for alias documentation after a mission's conclusion. Documentation confirms that QRJACK units utilized alias credit cards with real lines of credit to ensure a verifiable electronic trail. Records verify that the project used indigenous identity theft using the names of deceased individuals in foreign countries to anchor aliases. The CIA operated a secret print shop in Frankfurt specifically for QRJACK travel documents. Records show the project utilized aerial couriers from Air America for the most sensitive identity swaps. The project created family trees for empty identities to withstand a deep interrogation. Documentation shows QRJACK influenced the legend building process for the NOC non-official cover program. The agency utilized chemical aging agents to make new passports look like they had been carried for years. Records confirm that QRJACK provided the blueprint for identity resurrection if a previous alias was compromised. The project maintained a biometric database of its own officers to ensure aliases didn't overlap or conflict. Internal memos confirm that QRJACK used commercial travel agencies as front organizations to book phantom flights. The project provided the funding for the Foreign Identity Acquisition Team. Documentation shows the agency used QRJACK to monitor the efficiency of foreign border security through stress testing. The project operated a secret signal intelligence center to monitor airport radio traffic during high-risk transits. QRJACK utilized neutral nation birth certificates purchased through black market channels. Records indicate the project used ghost employment records from defunct European firms to bolster alias histories. The agency developed subdermal containers to hide microfilmed identity papers within an operative's body. QRJACK maintained a fleet of unmarked vehicles at Doles International for immediate deployment. Documentation shows the use of clandestine ticketing where the flights were paid for in cash at various European rail stations. The project used look-alike recruitment to find civilians who could serve as the physical template for a paper alias. Records show that QRJACK identities often included medical history files with real x-rays to pass through security checks. The agency utilized in-flight identity handoffs where two officers would swap passports in the aircraft lavatory. Documentation confirms the use of synthetic fingerprint overlays to bypass early forensic identification. QRJACK operated a clandestine embassy liaison group to influence local visa processing times. Records verify the project used fake news clippings in foreign newspapers to establish the public existence of a persona. The CIA purchased blocks of hotel rooms under QRJACK aliases months in advance to create a stay history. Documentation indicates the project used shadow diplomatic passports issued by cooperative African nations. QRJACK developed the two-stop logic where a traveler would change aliases in a middle-tier country like Thailand. Records show the use of invisible thread binding in passports to detect if they had been tampered with by hostile customs. The project funded the creation of alias alumni associations to provide a verifiable social background. Documentation confirms the use of low-probability names derived from phone books in small Midwest American towns. QRJACK utilized dead alias storage where successful identities were mothballed for future use. Records show the project used phantom insurance policies to provide a paper trail of risk management. The agency implemented stress biometric training to help officers maintain a steady heart rate during customs questioning. Documentation confirms that QRJACK provided sterile currency, unmarked, non-consecutive bills for all travel expenses. Quote from a declassified internal CIA technical briefing: "The goal of QRJACK was to ensure that when a man walked through customs, the computers saw a citizen and the guards saw a ghost." A quote from James Jesus Angleton, former CIA counterintelligence chief: "We weren't just forging documents, we were forging lives." Quote from a declassified 1964 operational memo: "Identity is the ultimate battlefield. If you can control the data that defines a man, you can control the man himself." Ooh, that was a good one. And a quote from a declassified internal training manual on identity management: "In the world of clandestine travel, the most dangerous man is the one who has no reason to be remembered by the person who stamped his passport." End quote. The most guarded secrets of QRJACK are buried under FOIA exemptions B1 and B3. The most significant block of redacted material is found in the QRJACK Appendix, External Liaison and Commercial Protocols. This document is roughly 450 pages of almost total black ink, with only the page numbers and the title visible. What does this hide? My speculation is that these redactions cover the corporate collusion agreements. While we know the agency worked with friendly carriers, the redacted sections likely prove that specific US and European airlines were practically operating as identity vending machines. My theory is that the CIA had a direct back-end access to the early reservation systems like Sabre. These redactions likely protect the fact that airlines were systematically deleting the names of CIA officers from passenger manifest in real time as they flew, replacing them with the QRJACK alias data. If revealed, this would prove a level of private sector complicity that would violate dozens of international aviation treaties and civil privacy laws, showing that the commercial sky was essentially a private CIA playground. Furthermore, the sheer volume of redactions suggests that these agreements might still be active in some form with modern carriers. And then there are some other theories. When the identity is hollow, the theories do fill the void, such as the permanent passenger theory. Some speculate that QRJACK didn't just move people, it created permanent alias pools. This theory suggests the agency maintains a rotating cast of phantom citizens who are kept alive in global systems indefinitely, filing taxes, paying bills, and renewing licenses, just so an officer can step into a fully matured identity at a moment's notice. Then there's the AI forefather speculation. There is a theory that the CIA used QRJACK as a testing ground for early identity generation algorithms. Proponents believe that by the 1970s, human officers weren't creating aliases anymore. Instead, a primitive computer program was synthesizing the most unremarkable personas based on statistical averages of global travelers to ensure they never caught a guard's eye. Then there's the duplicate diplomat conspiracy. Speculation persists that QRJACK was used to create perfect doubles of actual foreign diplomats. This theory suggests the agency would wait for a foreign official to travel, then use the QRJACK protocol to send an officer on the same flight using a near identical passport and empty record, allowing the officer to peel off and conduct business under the diplomat's perceived authority while the real official was in transit. And then there is the soul transfer experiment theory. It's a fringe one that suggests that QRJACK was the cover for a project involving deep hypnotic reprogramming. The speculation is that the agency didn't just give an officer a fake passport. They used pharmacological and psychological triggers to make the officer truly believe they were the alias while in transit. This would ensure that any biometric or polygraph tests conducted by a hostile service would pass because the officer's biological markers would be aligned with the truth of their fake identity. Was QRJACK a success? Tactically, it was a logistical masterstroke. The agency transformed the border crossing from a moment of extreme vulnerability into a routine administrative task. Tactically, the empty identity concept was revolutionary because it minimized the operational footprint. If an alias was stopped, there was no deep cover life to investigate, just a hollow shell that led nowhere. It broke the KGB's ability to track officers through historical travel patterns. By automating the creation of legends, the agency could move assets with a speed that baffled foreign counterintelligence. The tactical win was the realization that the most effective disguise isn't a physical one, but a digital and bureaucratic one. It turned every airport in the world into a potential safe zone where the CIA could regroup and retask without ever revealing their true presence. Strategically, it was the engine of global mobility. QRJACK allowed the CIA to project power into denied access areas with unprecedented speed. Strategically, it meant the U.S. could have an officer on the ground in a crisis zone before the crisis had even made the morning papers. It created a clandestine infrastructure that turned the world's commercial travel network into a secret highway system for American intelligence. It fundamentally shifted the balance of power during the Cold War by allowing for rapid response infiltration. This ability to move shadow personnel at the speed of the jet age gave the United States a strategic agility that its rivals struggled to match. The legacy of QRJACK is the permanent integration of the intelligence community into the global transit system, ensuring that wherever a plane can land, the agency can be. As far as operational and technological breakthroughs go, QRJACK led to quite a few, such as backstop automation and data seeding. QRJACK perfected the technique of pre-seeding databases with phantom information years before an identity was needed. This is the foundation of modern managed attribution systems used by the Department of Defense. Today's specialized units use automated software to create deep digital histories, social media accounts, shopping habits, and browsing histories for clandestine identities to ensure they can withstand the scrutiny of modern big data analytics and AI surveillance. Sterile transit protocols. The development of the airside swap, where identities are changed within the international transit zone of an airport, never technically entering the country under either name. These protocols are now standard for high-level asset exfiltration and rendition missions. It allows for the movement of personnel through major hubs like Dubai or Singapore while remaining legally invisible. It is used by special operations teams to move through neutral territory without violating local sovereignty on paper. Biometric bypass and synthetic identity architecture. The early research into how to move a person through a system that is looking for unique identifiers by providing non-conflicting data. This has evolved into the use of synthetic biometrics and identity masking technology. Modern operatives utilize specialized contact lenses, 3D printed overlays, or digital injection techniques to feed masked data into facial recognition and fingerprint scanners at automated border kiosks. This allows them to pass as a QRJACK style empty identity, even in a world of biometric tracking. And then just-in-time alias issuance. The ability to generate and authenticate quickly a full set of identity documents and backstories in a matter of hours through a global network of technical service stations. This is the rapid deployment model used by the CIA's Technical Services Division. Operatives can now receive digital identities and physical documentation on the fly at secure caches around the world. This allows for dynamic clandestine travel, where an officer can change personas mid-mission to evade local surveillance teams who are looking for a specific description. The QRJACK project proves that in the shadow war, the most effective armor is not a bulletproof vest, but a well-constructed passport. The Paper-Wraith was so effective because it attacked the enemy's strongest point, their bureaucracy. By turning the system against itself, the agency proved that a person is only as real as the records that describe them. When we look at the legacy of this project, we see the blueprint for the invisible world, a place where people move, act, and vanish without leaving a single trace in the digital world or physical record. The echoes of QRJACK are everywhere in our modern world of identity management and digital privacy. We live in a world where who you are is increasingly a matter of what the database says. The techniques developed to move spies through the airports of the Cold War are now the tools used to manage global flows of data and people in the 21st century. The agency didn't just create fake IDs. They discovered that in a world of total surveillance, the only true freedom is to be no one. The Paper-Wraith is still out there sitting next to you on your next flight, carrying a passport that says everything and means nothing. Thanks for listening. Keep your eyes on the manifest and your ears on the terminal. Always verify your identity, secure your credentials, and remember, the most dangerous person on the plane is the one the computer can't find. Join us next time as we examine Mystic, a program to intercept and record the entire telephone traffic of a nation. The digital front row, the dawn of the information age. When a superpower wants to hear the heartbeat of an entire country, it turns to the global ear. We'll uncover the terrifying scale of Mystic, the secret program that turned an entire nation's cellular network into a giant recording device. It's a story of total signal capture and auditory saturation, where there is no such thing as a private conversation. Join us next time for The Silent Observer. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.